Are you a self-storage owner or operator looking for service providers to help at your facility? Well, the Storage Business Owners Alliance, also known as the SBOA, has you covered. The SBOA is a premier online hub for connecting self-storage owners and operators to industry-leading products and service providers. We provide one-stop shopping for your business with exclusive offers to save time and money. At the SBOA, we believe by coming together, we help owners and operators grow revenue, gain purchasing power, reduce expenses, improve efficiencies, and increase profitability. We also offer many resources such as our conferences and Self-Storage Unlock webinars to help self-storage owners and operators gain the knowledge needed to become more competitive in the industry. To become an SBOA member or to find out more information, please visit www.thesboa.com today. We can't wait for you to join the Alliance.
Good morning, self-storage industry. Welcome back for another episode of the SBOA's Self-Storage Unlocked. We do this type of webinars 2 times, sometimes 3 times a month, every Thursday or every other Thursday, I should say, from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Jessica Johnson. I'm the Vice President of the Storage Business Owners Alliance, and thank you all so much for being here again. Today, we're going to talk all about tips on hiring a really good self-storage consultant. I have several of them with us today that are going to kind of talk us through their processes and how they can work with owner-operators that are either looking to get into the business, looking to scale the business, or maybe have specific projects that they need assistance with. I see all of you chatting over there. So that leads me into telling you, if you want to talk with us and ask us questions, and I highly encourage that you do while we have these experts here with us today, please do that in the comment section. Also, keep your eyes peeled on screen and on the comment section. We will be asking poll questions. So if you could take a minute and answer those poll questions, we would greatly appreciate it. As you just saw by that commercial, Storage for Rookies is back next Thursday, October 19th. That is a one-day virtual event that we host for newer owners and operators or operators that are looking to grow and scale their business. It's a great event. It's all virtual, just like we are here today. It's about 5.5 hours. So you got to sit tight and buckle in with us on that one because it's a long one. But the good thing is if you get a ticket for it, you do get access to the replay. So just on the bottom of the screen, and we'll post this later. And if you follow us on social media, you can get a half off code for the ticket, but the ticket's only $49. But if you can save some money, go ahead and save some money. But again, not a very expensive ticket for some education in the industry. So we couldn't do these type of events without our different companies and experts that we know and vendor sponsors and people that we work with. So huge shout out to the following companies that are with us today. We have Coast to Coast Realty, Black Swan Storage, Freedom Storage Management, and Sierra Self-Storage Consulting. So I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. I'm going to start bringing up our guest for the day. So our first one today is Andrew Kelly from Sierra Self-Storage Consulting. Say that 3 times fast, Andrew. That's a lot.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. I just want to introduce myself and thank Jessica for being part of this panel, which some esteemed other colleagues here. I've been in the business for 31 years. pretty vast experience from property management to feasibility studies and everything in between. The only thing I don't do is build it. I also write a bi-monthly article on LinkedIn called Self-Storage Soup of the Day to help out anybody who's looking to either get into the business as a new owner or an existing owner. So I'm here to help you guys, and I'm glad to be here today. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. And please, if you're on LinkedIn, connect with Andrew. I follow his self-storage soup of the day. That's a hard one to say in a row, too. But you always have some great insights out there. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us for free on LinkedIn and being here today. All right. Next up, I have I got this wrong yesterday. I'm tired, y'all. We'll go with Jim Mooney. I hope I'm going in the right order. And most of you probably know who Jim Mooney is. Oh, and actually, we're not going to go with Jim because Jim is having some internet issues at the current moment. So we'll go ahead and bring up Matt Van Horn. A lot of you probably know Matt. Hey, Matt, good morning.
Good morning, Jess. How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Good, good. Matt, tell us all about you and what you've been doing in the self-storage industry now for what, 23 years?
Yeah, I kind of grew up in it, actually. One of my mentors was a former VP of Ops for Extra Space. I actually got into self-storage because they were going to give me an apartment. I was going to school at the time, so that's how I got into it. Got an apartment, and over the next 15 years, I became VP of Ops of our management company, co-founded our development company, did feasibility consulting all over the U.S., did some time on the board of the FSSA like you are, was president in 2015, and then kind of started my own thing and going from there, and been focusing on really feasibility studies, investment analysis, and management. So it's been a long trip.
Yeah, you've been around for a lot, and we constantly send people Matt's way if feasibility studies are needed to being completed. We highly suggest that you have those done if you're looking at acquisitions or development of new properties. So Matt's a great contact for you. Matt also has a really good weekly newsletter. What is it called again, Matt? The roll up the storage, or I forget.
Yeah, you can access it just by visiting the selfstoragenewsletter.com.
Awesome. Thank you. That makes it way easier. Well, thanks for being here, Matt, and sharing your expertise with us. And we'll bring you back up in just a few minutes. Next up, this is no stranger to the industry. I have Jim Mooney Jr. with us today from Freedom Storage Management. Hello, sir.
Good morning, Jess. How are we today?
We are good. We are tired. We just got back from Texas. I got to see your lovely face there in person.
And in Georgia.
2 weeks of you. Send help, guys. I'm just kidding. Jim, tell us about you.
And I'm Jim Mooney Jr. I'm Vice President of Operations for Freedom Storage Management. We own and operate 25 stores, a lot on the East Coast. We have a couple in Texas and Tennessee that we run remotely. We only have 4 offices, so a lot of ours are run hub and spoke or unmanned or unattended or whatever phrase is out there right now. Been in the industry about 24 years. And I do consulting on the side as well. And it's, operational consulting mostly. And it's a great industry to be in. I love being here.
Awesome. Well, we love having you around, Jim. Jim speaks all over the country as well as I do. Jim and I will be in Oklahoma speaking in a couple of weeks. So if you are in the state of Oklahoma, they have a conference coming up. Please come see Jim and I. I think that's November 15th. We're talking all about how to increase net operating income and things that you can be doing and some levers that you can be pulling. And let me tell you, with the climate that we're in today, you need to be doing these things. So thanks for being here, Jim. Always a pleasure.
Yes.
All right. Last but certainly not least, we have RK from Coast to Coast Realty. Hey, RK.
Good morning.
Good morning. RK, I didn't get to ask you this the other day, but 2 years in the industry?
It's closer to 40.
Okay. So we'll round up and say 40 because I'm trying to come up with a total number here. But RK, tell us all about you.
I've been in the industry a fair amount of time and have had the pleasure of working with most of my colleagues on the call here today. Andy and I worked at National Self Storage way back in the day. So you have a great panel of experts here that can really tell you the inside out of consulting. I was out of the consulting business for about a decade. I worked for Metro Storage and did a fair amount of development for them and acquisitions. And right now, I'm currently developing 2 of my own sites, one in New Jersey, one in Florida. and I've got a $125 million line to acquire right now. So I'm actively in the business. I take on all kinds of strange consulting assignments. It seems like when somebody has the really weirdest one they can find, it's usually me they call. So for example, I'm liquidating a self-storage property, a property up in Manassas, Virginia, that was bought for the sole purpose of tearing it down. And it was a 2.5-year-old fully occupied Class A, super low. I mean, you just could not have a better self-storage property. And there was a little tear that came down my eye when they said they were going to tear it down.
I bet.
So they closed the store August 1st, and we have about 40 holdover tenants. And my job is to get those 40 people out or moved or do something with them so we can demolish the buildings and start construction. So it's been a very interesting process. But those are the kind of strange things that I love to do, because it just gives me a whole new perspective on the business.
Yeah, and RK, I remember a story from ISS this year where didn't somebody give you like a very, very hard but specific buy box, and it took you like 7 years to find that, right? Something like that.
He's actually my financial advisor, and he's become a really good friend. But he said, basically, I'll buy any self-storage property as long as it's within 15 minutes of my house.
That's what it was. Okay.
And he lived in Boca, and it was painful, but we finally placed him in one, and I put him in his second one 11 years later. It took me 11 years to get the second one for him. So
saying that, yeah, I mean, be patient out there, y'all. I know we hear it all the time. I want to get into self-storage. I want to own self-storage. Patience is key here. Don't make the wrong deal. You will pay for it in the end. And unfortunately, I think we're going to see a lot of unfortunate souls here have that happen to them in the upcoming months. So I'm going to bring everybody back up. We're going to get started. And again, if you have questions for the speakers while they're here, now is your time. Keep your eyes open on that chat area in case we ask you guys some poll questions. So Jim, I'll start with you on this one.
Oh, thanks.
You do consulting. So if let's say I'm brand new, but I'm in multifamily and I've heard about this thing called self-storage and I want to get in and I don't know where to start, and I come to you. Tell me what that looks like and how you can kind of get a gauge if it's even maybe right for me within like a 30-minute conversation.
Well, really, one of the first questions I'm going to ask you is, you're getting into it. Okay, what kind of owner do you want to be? Do you want to be a passive owner, or do you want to be hands-on? Because I've had people come up to me and say, hey, I want to get in storage. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And this. I said, who's running it? And they're like, I don't know. Well, you have to figure out who's going to run it first, where you're going to have a third party come and do it, because they're going to take care of the website and the software and all those things for you. And the next question I'm going to ask you is, have you done a feasibility study to find out where you're looking for? Because Matt, we've all talked about this. We talked to you yesterday. People come out, yeah, I'm going to build a property. I met a couple in Vegas last year. They lived in Oklahoma. They were building 120,000 square foot. And I said, who did your feasibility study? He said, fees of what?
Lord,
we're in trouble.
Yeah.
So, you ask those couple key questions, sort of like when I train for operations for manager for customers. You come to a fork in the road, you have to ask the question, which fork are you going to take? Are you going to be hands-on owner, or are you going to be a passive owner and let somebody else run for you? That's going to help guide the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I see lots of heads shaking. RK, Matt, Andrew, anything you want to chime in on there as far as when you do, because I know you all do the same type of assessments that Jim was just talking about. What kind of are those triggers you're listening for to get a gauge on what you got going on here with that potential new owner?
I like to start with a potential new owner and find out what their capital stack looks like, because I need to understand how much equity they've got to put into a transaction, how much debt they're comfortable with. And that allows me to do some sizing and to figure out, are they a 20,000 square foot outside of Des Moines, Iowa, or are they a Manhattan client? And that need to really qualify, begin to understand. And then the most important thing I ask them is, what is your expectation for return? Because the whole premise is that it's got to be able to make sense economically for you. And if your return threshold is so high, I talk to folks all the time. They say, oh, I want to get into business. I heard I can get a 10% return. And I say, fine, you send me those deals all day long and I'll pay you double for them.
No doubt.
There. reasonable experience and an expectation of return. And then once I know that, then I can figure out what the sizing looks like, and I can figure out kind of what it, that might dictate remote managed versus on-site. Now, it just triggers a lot of different things. So that's what I like to do.
Yeah. Matt, how about you?
Agree with what both Jim and RK were saying. If you're looking at it from the feasibility due diligence standpoint, again, returns, cap stack, what is your preference for operation? Because a lot of that is, we've been focused. If you're talking about from the investment side, it's the deal. And then somebody gets it and it's like, well, how am I going to operate it? And you should be already ahead of that, because that's what should be in your projections, because whatever your tendency is to do in that aspect. And then if we're talking, say, management or just general operational consulting, it's okay, like what Jim said, are you a hands-on, hands-off owner? Do you want, and then where kind of is the kink in the hose? Is it, if you're saying, okay, well, I'm not getting enough rentals, okay, well, that could be marketing, that could be sales, that could be the way customer service is done. We're going to start digging into those things, because usually what people will come with is a general question. I'm not getting X, or I want X. And then we have to figure out, okay, well, what are the variables that affect X, and which ones, are affecting you?
Yeah, no, definitely. And Matt, I like that you brought up the fact about, due diligence and the studies and everything. What's a realistic expectation on timelines right now to get a good feasibility study done? And then what are some expectations around a fair timeline on really good due diligence?
Well, first, I mean, for me, for feasibilities, it's usually, I go to the site. If I'm doing a full feasibility like that, I'm going to visit. And then usually about 10 to 14 days after that, I can get you the report when I have you scheduled. I mean, that's been the big thing over the last couple of years is, when are you in, what queue are you in for that aspect of it. So, but after that, it goes pretty quick once you're actually started. It's just been, as I've been a crazy couple of years, but things, I think, with interest rates, construction costs, we were all watching some of the occupancy fluctuations at our stores now. It's slowing down a bit for people that we're going to probably jump in. I know, like I said, the Wall Street Journal or Facebook said storage was great, and that's good. But, the numbers still have to fit with whatever your criteria is.
Yeah, definitely. Andrew, how about you? Are you seeing like the same things everybody's saying? Anything different that you're seeing out there? Oh, you're muted. Just hit that unmute button for me real quick at the bottom.
Yeah, I'm seeing pretty much what everybody else is seeing. Occupancy's dropping, a little harder to get the asking rates, people walking in the door where we were getting them 2 years ago. Again, we're just raising rates through the existing base, eliminating discounts, etc., and trying to compete with excellent customer service and curb appeal, and having managers that are dedicated to the cause.
Mm-hmm.
And what Matt was saying, with everything being kind of crazy out there with everything, I generally ask that client, what's your expectation? Like RK said, are you a short-term holder, long-term holder? Are you going to refi this facility in 5 years? You're going to flip it in 10? What is that? That helps me kind of gauge where we need to go with that conversation. Some of those long-term holds can allow different fluctuations in the feasibility study. And I totally agree with RK when we used to work together. Is it an 18% return you want or a 30% return? Is this realistic? What's the cost of land? What's the cost of the building and construction? Makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, definitely. RK, I'm going to pass this one over to you because I know you love studying rates. You're a high proponent of the software StoreTrack for some rate data and market data. And I'm only bringing this up because, we lost him. We'll get him back. Well, I'll ask this to everybody, and I want to bring this up because I've heard this a lot recently over the past couple of weeks being out at some of these conferences. Andrew, you had said, you're really working on existing rates, right? So that's ECRI for those of you in the industry that don't know that acronym. And it's going to be a critical piece. So revenue management systems, scraping, competitor rate data is going to become really critical. How can you guys come in as a consultant for someone that's maybe not expertise in rate management and how to to work this, because it's a science to it, right? So give me some thoughts around ECRI and how you could help an existing owner that's maybe having some of these occupancy issues that we're seeing.
Well, I will say just recently, within the last year, I was hired for a consulting basis to come in and help an existing customer. And I looked at his numbers, and he was leaving $30,000-$40,000 on the table. He was 100% occupied, waiting list, top 2 facilities in town. And I'm like, you're leaving this kind of money. Well, he got upset with me. He goes, there's no way. And I said, I'll tell you what, how about this? If I'm wrong, you pay nothing. If I'm right, you double my fee. He goes, well, I'm not
I
going to
love
do that.
that.
And so basically I said, okay, how about a gentleman's handshake? We shook on it, and I showed him, circled it. He about threw up. And I said, look, I am here to help you. I'm going to get this money for you in 60 days. And so I gone out and I done a competition analysis in his market, found out he was the lowest in the market on pricing. He had never raised his rates. And the reason why is because the seller told him, oh, this is a golden goose. You never have to do anything. You just run at 99% occupied with these rates and you collect a big paycheck. I said, well, here's what we're going to do. The guy called me back in about 75 days, and he says, I can't believe the amount of money I'm making. And he goes, it makes me sick to think about how many years I've owned this place. And I'm like, here, that's what we're all here to help you with. Yeah. So it happens every single day.
Yeah, definitely. Real quick, Jim, before you get started going on him, what Andrew just had to say, we just have 2 poll questions in the comment section. I don't see any responses. Poll question 1. So if you want to answer it, just put a number 1 next to it with a yes or no. Have you ever worked with a self-storage consultant? We want to know. So write number 1 - yes or no if you have. Poll question 2, are you interested in working with a self-storage consultant? So again, do number 2 - yes or no. Jim, go ahead and say what you were going to say about what Andrew was saying.
Andrew, I agree 100%. I did a job last year. I met with an owner, flew out and met with him, and had to meet with his partner because they had 2 partners. And the partner was all proud of himself that he showed me this site link management summary that was 100% full. And I looked at it and said, you're losing $13,000 a month. He said, no, we're full. I'm like, yeah, you're full, but you're losing $13,000 a month. And it wasn't even rates. He wasn't charging admin fees. He wasn't doing insurance or protection plans. And his economic occupancy was 67%. And I said to the manager, why aren't we doing rate increases? Oh, our customers don't like them. So then I
what Bob Copper would do to that manager, right, Jim?
And then I showed him a report out of my system in SiteLink. You can run the tenant rate demand tracker and an existing tenant rate increase tracker. And look, I can say, look, I did 100 rate increases here, and I had 6 people move out in 90 days, but I generated this much more revenue. And the thing is, for me, is I just did another one. The guy was talking about adding Veritech to his platform because he wanted the good, better, best program, which is fantastic, right? Mm-hmm. But he wasn't doing lead to lease, and he wasn't capturing leads and tracking the leads to see where the leads came from to see how his rates compared. So there's more than one. I think, Andrew, you said more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one with this game. There's so many pieces of the puzzle that tie together. And I always say you can't make a good business decision with bad or no data.
Right.
Yeah, you got to have the data, number 1, and the data is easy to get, right? We know lots of vendors in the space that can help you get this data. We know lots of consultants in the space that can help read the data. I think that's the more critical part. We have data all day long. We have historical, current. I think it's how to read that data and then how to go apply it to the business to make better business decisions and capture more dollars, which y'all are going to need to do here soon. Matt, before I come to you, I want to ask this question to the group. This is from Noel. I'm trying to build a 32-unit self-storage facility, 5,600 square feet on a 1-acre lot. There's no existing self-storage on the 1-acre lot. Do I still need a feasibility report on a small facility like this? And what is the minimum amount of square footage of self-storage, new construction, before you need a feasibility report? Anybody have thoughts on that one?
I'm going to defer to Matt and Andrew since that's their wheelhouse.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Okay, I'll jump in. When you're talking about something that size, I mean, then it's depending, okay, what market are you in, what's going on with the rates, things like that. I've had people that are doing expansions of 5,600 and we've looked at it, and honestly, it could go either way when it's that small. I mean, you're looking at the demand, I'm looking at what the existing properties are doing, what the rates are. It's hard to say yes or no. Because again, 5,600 square feet in the middle of Iowa is very different than 5,600 square feet in the middle of Manhattan. Those are very different things. I would want to, I'll be personally want to talk to a person first and kind of dig into the market a bit before I make a suggestion one way or the other.
Agreed. I think it's very market driven. You know, somewhere out in the sticks or out in the cornfields, that may work. But you're going to build it cash. You may not even have to worry. You have a great banking relationship, no problem. But if you're going to have to go get financing, more than likely, at least in my experience, the banker is going to ask you for a feasibility study, whether that's a comprehensive one or, you know, a basic boilerplate.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So thanks for answering that one, guys. Let me ask you this question. So we're talking a lot of like new owners, but we're also talking some existing owners. Do any of you have owners that come to you that they're like, maybe they have one or two facilities and they want more, but they don't know what direction to go? Do I do it and build my own infrastructure with the help of a consultant? Do I buy it if I have the resources to buy it and then push it to third-party management? Do you work with clients that are like that? And how do you kind of lead some of those clients along that discovery path to see if they're making the right moves? I'll go with you, Matt, first.
Sure. No, I do. I do work with clients that are like that, and and again, this goes back into the number of factors. You know, what access to capital do they have? What are they? How far do they feel? You know, what are they comfortable with? What are their exit strategy, or do they have one? I mean, a lot of times I talk to owners, they'll say, "Oh, I'm going to keep this for my kids," and their kids are artists and they're living somewhere else. They have no interest in doing this. So those kind of things really what are your goals, I guess, really, and how do we think we can get there in what way, and what do you have access to now? So, like, for example, getting into development, a lot of people call, I want to get into self-storage development. Well, typically construction loans want 30% down. Do you have access to that kind of capital? What have you done before? What's your experience? All of these things in terms of, getting kind of away from necessarily what the dream is, because we want that, but then how do we get to where you want to go, and what do you want to do? And then, okay, well, if you want to go here, what are the pitfalls along the way that we want to try to avoid?
Yeah, definitely.
Matt, it's not only having the capital to build it. You got to have the cash flow to run it to become cash positive. Right. I've seen people that build a property and they think magically overnight it's going to be full, and all of a sudden they're cash strapped and they can't run it. So that's the other part of that equation. Can you build it? Yes. But you have the wherewithal to run it. You budget yourself to get your growth up there, because it's not gonna. I had one where the guy's like, "There's no banner." I'm like, "You don't have coming soon on your website." Well, yeah, we're not ready yet. I'm like, "You need that." So do you have the cash to build it? But more importantly, do you have the cash to run it to become stabilized?
Well, yeah, the operation strategy, like I said, is paramount to all of these things. The deal is one thing, but a lot of the deal is going to work on how you feel comfortable operating it. I mean, if you're going to operate it yourself and you're not going to take certain fees, or we see, when I'm going through OMs on properties that are smaller and they're family owned and they've been paying their nephew under the table, well, you've got to account for payroll. They've been throwing stuff out instead of doing auctions. Well, you need to do auctions correctly. All these things that we tend to, take for granted in the way that we do business day to day. You need to make sure that you're putting that in there, and that's going to affect on how the numbers look. So, and that's the other thing. If you're getting into this and you're newer, there's nuance, variables and legal in this that are different probably from any other, even commercial real estate investment you've ever had. And until you learn that, it's good to work with somebody, because you need to set your expectations correct. And that's really what it is. I mean, even if you, again, like you said, just, well, what's the owner want to do? Well, let's start setting expectations. I don't know how many people on this call, but over the last few years, I can't tell you how many people called me and said, yep, in 3 years, I'm going to have 100. I mean, that was the number. I don't know why, but that was the number. And I've not heard from most of the people again, because again, it is a business, not just a real estate investment. You have to run it to drive that value.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Okay, let me ask you this. I'll go to RK. Since RK, we have you up. Can we hear you?
I think so.
Oh, we're here. Good. Gotta love technology when it works, right? Okay, RK, I'm a new owner and I'm gonna start maybe the interviewing process of some consultants that I may want to consider working with. What are some of like those key criteria that I would need them to have? Like what type of questions should I ask them? Like industry experience, what their core competencies are, how long they've been doing this, do they own self-storage themselves, things like that.
Yeah, those are really key questions to ask. What you want to do is try and match up the expertise of the consultant with the needs that you have. So, for example, I don't actively manage self-storage properties. So if you came to me and said, look, I really need a management consultant, I'd probably refer to one of the other guys on the team, because it's not what I do on a day-to-day basis. Now, if you got a troubleshooting problem we just need to get you through, that's a pretty easy thing. But if you're talking about day-to-day, I need somebody to guide me through because I'm self-managing, but I need a coach behind me, or I need a mentor, that's probably not a position that I would take, because that's not matching my skill set with it. Same thing with digital marketing. I don't have the expertise to do really strong digital marketing. I think that's a really specialized endeavor. And so I would refer that out to someone else. The other weakness I have is I'm not a good money raiser. I do not like to go out and ask people for money in a deal. And so that would be an area that I would not be your best bet for. So I think it's matching up the expertise to the needs you have, and then finding out how much experience the consultant has in that particular discipline. And that's how you build that rapport. But you're going to know within the first 15 minutes of that conversation with that consultant whether or not you vibe with them, whether you got the right, attitude with each other, and your goals are the same. It'll kick in pretty quickly, and it'll become evident, I think, that you do want to work with that person, or you don't want to work with that person.
Maybe I should start an app called Self Storage Tinder where I can match y'all up to the I'm just kidding. Jim or Andrew, I'll go to you for a second and then I'll go back to Jim. So RK named a lot of the things in like the matchmaking dating game process. What about checking some of these credentials? Do you think they should ask for like the resume to see if they're involved in the SSA at all, whether it be state or national level, any certificates or licenses that may be applicable to like help them along in this process? What should they be looking for on the credentials side?
Well, in my opinion, I think experience speaks wealth. And I think if you have been in this business through the peaks and valleys and know how to deal with all kinds of issues, whether that's in management or building, it's good. In 31 years, I've never been asked for a reference, period. And I think that
Awesome.
a lot of that speaks for the word of mouth. A lot of people work by word of mouth and who they've worked with before. And quite frankly, when I have asked people for references, a lot of my clients say, you know what, we don't want to let anybody else know what we're doing out there. It may be in the same area they're looking at.
Yeah.
I have got that. Recently that happened, and clients are like, no, don't want to talk to them. So I'm like, oh, okay. But I've sat on two boards, Arizona Self Storage Board and the New Mexico Self Storage Board. I go to the trade shows, the ISS, SSA, and I think that all helps to be out there schmoozing and know the vendors. If I can't help them, like RK was saying, digital marketing or SEO, that's not my forte.
Yeah.
Big finance deals to go out and buy a portfolio of 30 facilities. That's not my deal.
Got you.
So I'll refer it out.
Yeah. And I think everybody's pretty fair in knowing where their limits are and are also fair in pushing them in the direction of the right resource. We're a very, very friendly industry. I came from food franchising before this, and there was no like sharing of customer information in that industry. You got top secret recipes that all these different restaurants are trying to launch. So it's very refreshing to be in an industry that is so willing to share information, and in a lot of cases free, like these webinars. Like this is a labor of love over here. We don't get paid on these webinars. We put these out completely for free because we care about the industry and we want the industry to do well, because the entire industry does well, like it has been doing. Then the commercial real estate spotlight's on us, right? I have a fun contest we're going to do real quick to mix this up in the comments. I'm removing myself from this numeric equation, but between Andrew, Matt, Jim, and RK, how many total years of experience do you think these fellas have? Is it 75? Is it over 100? Put your comments put your answers in the comment section. I'm sorry. And we'll send you all a $10 Amazon gift card for whoever gets it to the most accurate one. You can yourself a cup of coffee. Hey, we're on budgets over here. Times are tough. But speaking of tough times, Jim and I were just in Texas, and they had an amazing keynote speaker, and it was really about artificial intelligence and disruption. And there's been a lot in our society, right? And hyper growth. So he showed this really fascinating chart of how self-storage has grown throughout the course of history. And we have this huge growth, like we had 10 years worth of growth, I think what it was, Jim, right? In like a 1 to 2 year time period. So people that came in at that time, I think, have unrealistic expectations as to what this is versus some of us here that have been around a long time and seen all the different cycles. We're in a cycle. People get nervous, right? But I wouldn't necessarily panic. Like we've gotten through the other cycles and there's a way to get through the cycles. So Jim, kind of talk to me about your feelings from that keynote speaker and some of the stuff he had to say about that.
You know, it's funny, Jess, because we've had this conversation multiple times. I know I had it with Matt the one day. People have gotten into this industry the last 2 years, only have known the gravy train, right? So, and even one of my partners, you know, he focuses on, you know, peak income number. It's like, great, that's a fantastic number, but it's not realistic anymore because as the guy said there, and it's funny how he did it, he had a picture frame and he would bring it back and forth. And, you know, 23 compared to 22, 21, yeah, everybody's down. It's like, oh my God, gloom and doom. But if you wide frame and look at 23 versus 19, 19's we're up dramatically from 19.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that's it. I mean, you know, you have to look at the data that's in front of you and not just, you know, you can't compare this year to last year. It's not going to happen again.
Yeah, definitely. Anybody else have any more thoughts on that? I'm sure we're all going to echo the same sentiment, but please feel free to share your perspective.
I mean, honestly, we just lived through the golden age of self-storage. Honestly, I mean, what we were able to do over the last 5 years, I had never seen in my career ever. And I don't know if we'll see it again. And a lot of it is it good, bad, or not? You know, it's all about perspective. It's kind of like that, you know, when you got into it, what your loan situation is for some people. I mean, it kind of reminds me of that one meme I've seen about the Titanic and lobsters. You know, the people on the Titanic were scared to death. The lobsters that were about ready to get thrown into a pot, well, that was great for them. It's all about perspective in terms of what you're looking at. And yeah, I mean, if you consider from when most of us started, this is amazing and it's a great business and we've multiplied things many times over. If you know, got into it a couple of years ago, this is going to seem like it's going off a cliff and you know, it's really kind of just going back down to baseline, really.
Yeah, definitely. RK, Andrew, anything you want to add to that?
No, I'd like to say, you know, it's going to be getting back to basics. We were talking yesterday in the pre-meeting that I think we're have to get back to basics with marketing, curb appeal, customer service, and keeping up on what's going on out there with the rates. You know, a lot of us do feasibility studies, and it's amazing. You go to these competitors, and you get a horrible service, and the curb appeals rotten, et cetera. And they're all sitting back on their hindsight saying, hey, I'm 100% occupied. I don't need to return phone calls. I don't need to do this and that. Well, guess what? That correction is coming. And those are the first ones who are going to be struggling, who will be the same people calling everybody on this panel, help, help, help. How do I do it? Well, it's back to basics. And I think that as long as you've never lost that core, at least in the facilities I've managed over the years, that's number one. And, you know, we're a big contender in every market that we've ever been in because we offer what a lot of other competitors do not give.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said back to basics and marketing. I'm a huge marketing person. So let me get on my soapbox for just 2 minutes, if I may. Google search is down for self-storage near me by like 10% at this current time. So you've got occupancy rates dropping. You have Google searches dropping. Advertising is inflated and more expensive. So it's going this direction. Like we need to get it all to like to equilibrium. but there are ways to do it. As we were just talking about earlier, the rate management, revenue management, your ancillary income items, which anyone on this panel can talk about in nauseum, about how you can push some of those. Like Jim, tell the audience what you do with locks. Like locks help, right? Selling locks.
Last month we were, and again, 21 out of 25 stores are unmanned, and we were 97% lock sales.
That's awesome. And that's a big number, right? I mean, some people will give it with their admin fee, charging fees, sticking to your fee charges, making sure those fee charges are in your leases, like all of these elementary stuff items to the people that have been around for a long time and get this process are definitely going to come back into play. For a quick second, because I saw this asked on a Facebook forum the other day, and I happen to rent from a REIT. I rent from Extra Space. I want to talk a little bit for just a quick second about kind of the REIT strategy and model. Here's what's happening. And I can testify to this because it happened to me. They get you in low. I'm in a 5x10 in Jacksonville, drive up, non-climate. It was a little over $100 when I entered 13 months ago. I now pay $206 a month for that unit. It'd be cheaper for me to move out and move back in. However, it's been very, very hot in Jacksonville, Florida. So the likelihood of me doing that is pretty slim. It's cooling off now. I probably will go do that or go shop my rates as a consumer, especially being in the business. But I'm in the business and they've got me. So let's talk about that. Like they're coming in, they're lowballing, right? And then within like 3-4 months, they're increasing you, and they are increasing you heavy. How do you compete against that? What should these owners and operators be doing to stay in line with that kind of strategy?
Jessica, your experience, I don't think, is really very unique. I've got a place in Swan, and I think when we went in, it was 100 and something a month, and now it's a 375 for a. And of course, she didn't pick the most economical unit. She took one with a high, big door. So, they only have like 10 of those on the property. Mm-hmm. Full, and so they can really push the rents really hard on that. And we know that almost all of the REITs, their modus operandi is to put butts in the seats, and once they're buckled in, then you start taking them for a ride. And mm-hmm. That's really how it's structured to be. It didn't used to be that way in the old days. We all kind of competed on a par basis, but now with the acceleration of the algorithms and what it takes to drive a customer to the property and to get them to close, those are the tools that they need. And the consumers really don't think about what this is going to cost them a year or a year and a half from now. Because one of the big things I always preach is it's interesting how the expectations and what people think about self-storage is totally different sometimes from how they actually use it. When you ask them how many times you're going to come on to visit your stuff, oh, I should be there 2 or 3 times a month. What does it actually end up? It's lucky if it's 2 or 3 times a year.
Correct.
But they have this expectation. And what we need to do is to teach operators to manage to the expectation, but to manage the business the right way at the same time. And you have to be able to marry those two things up. And you got to make sure that the consumer understands that, look, you've never used self-storage before. Let my 40 years of experience help you through this process. And by building that bond with them, because really, we're not really renting space at the end of the day. What we're doing is we're creating a trust bond. That's what we're doing with our customers. And when you build that bond, which to me is why the remote thing is such an anomaly, because you don't get that piece of it. And so I have a lot of respect for guys like Jim and Bob Copper and those guys who are forging ahead with a totally new business model, because they miss a lot of that area. And I think it's technology and the way that we're headed. My store, I fully intend to run fully remote in 4 years. But getting me through lease up, I want somebody there all the time, pushing that deal to the maximum. And then we can take the foot off the gas a little bit and start to figure out how we really grasp it. But I need to get to my stabilized economic occupancy, not my stabilized physical occupancy. I need the money to go into the bank. And that's where the disconnect comes, because it's easy to fill a property up in 12 months. It really is. It's not that difficult. All you got to do is give away all your money. And there you go. You know, it's that getting it to the point where it turns a profit that you need guys like that are on this panel, because we help you with that. We know the bridge that needs to be built to get you from today to tomorrow.
RK, I want to say I love that you said we're their trusted source, because at SSA Fall, Tim Dietz, the CEO and president of the National SSA, did a presentation and showed some of that negative commentary that self-storage gets. It's junk. It's just their stuff. You may think that, but maybe I don't think that of my stuff, and I want it protected and secure, and I'm willing to pay for some of that, right? So trusted source is a great way to put it. And that's what we are. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we are renting air, but you know, Alana Ross from storageauctions.com is one of my great friends. The things they find in auctioned items. I mean, I think probably 9 out of 10 auctioned items or units have an urn of someone's ashes in there. Like, that's a priceless family heirloom memory. Like, you're not just storing their stuff in some scenarios, you know? Yeah, sometimes you're storing a bag of trash, and those guys probably need to go assess what they're doing. So I'm going to circle back real quick and kind of get us back into the talking about the consulting side. With you guys, if somebody comes in and they want to work with you, what does that look like? Are you charging like an hourly rate? Are you setting a retainer? Is it a percentage of maybe revenue you help drum up for them, like some of the third-party management groups charge? Give me the rundown on how you guys kind of price and scope out your work a little bit. And RK, I'll start with you.
Thanks. So usually it's just a phone call where we get to know each other. It's probably a 15 or a 20-minute. You know, I might bring the site up on my desktop and desktop out with, talk a little bit about competitors. I'll probably pull a Tract IQ report right away because it gives me a fast facts. You know, now I've got foot per capita. I've got who the competitors are. Are we, you know, working with institutional competitors versus independent owner operators? The indie operators a little bit different pricing environment than the REITs are, and so just kind of talk about the attributes of the site. And at that point, I may not be the right consultant for them. I might say, you know what, I see a lot of risk in this deal, and you know, I don't want to take your money. Because I know today, in what I'm seeing, this is a no-go for me. It's not a viable project. You know, you're paying way too much for the land, blah 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 blah, and so it's easy to kind of screen them. But what I do on the next step is I send them an email, and the email has the deliverables for the study that they want, whether it's a desk study, a preliminary, or whether it's a full-blown. And I give them the actual deliverables and the time frame and the cost for each one. There's a trigger there you can pull for an on-site visit versus non-on-site, and you can see the pricing there. And then one of the things that I think is most important is I give them a link to a sample report. They need to see what they're going to get at the end of the day, because we can talk about expectations all day long. I can give you a table of contents, but if you don't know what that report looks like, you may not be satisfied at the end of the day. So I want them right up front to be able to compare what I'm going to deliver to them to what they may be getting from one of my colleagues on it. And we all have great work product. We just approach it maybe a little bit differently and use different templates to get there. But I want a clear expectation from them of knowing when I'm going to deliver it. It's in writing. They have a sample report. They have a scope of work. And then I'll ask them, is there anything you want to add to this? Is there something you want to take away from it? I generally don't mix pricing up very much. I use pretty much a standard pricing, but I also have in my consulting agreement, it says that if you want additional services, I bill them on an hourly rate, and that's how I cover myself on additional services. But you know, I think it's important that you get a look at a report and you get a chance to kick the tires and see what it's all about.
Right. Awesome. Thanks for that, RK. Matt, how about you? What's that look like for you?
Very similar to what RK just said. I mean, you should know what you're getting. There's, you know, one of the things that's been that we've dealt with in self-storage, just because self-storage has been the commercial real estate asset over the last few years, is all this, and this goes back to like, okay, well, who are you talking to? Who are you hiring? What's their experience? There's a lot of people that got into this over the last few years that started selling everything. Just like, when you look at different marketing products and things, there's a lot of stuff for sale. So we want to go through, like I say, get expectations, go through that. I personally like to price things on a project basis. I don't do a lot of hourly stuff, but it just depends on what it is. But typically for management, it's a percentage, a straight fee or a percentage of revenue. And then with feasibility or desktops, it's usually a straight fee, and unless there's something 100% extra that I have to go to do. But it's typical like that.
Yeah. Andrew, same, different?
Same thing, project based. It could be hourly, it could be a flat fee. Generally, if I walk into a management issue where they're just operations are out of control, they don't know what they're really doing, I may build in a percentage of the revenue gain that I get them.
Mm-hmm.
It really depends on what they need, but generally, feasibility studies, that type, or long scope projects require a 50% down retainer fee. If it's something I can do in a couple hours, I just do hourly or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So it really depends on the client, how big they are, what they're really asking. And basically what RK said, I do the same thing, which is, this is my outline, this is a deliverable, and these are all the extra, because it never ceases to fail. We get into one of these feasibility studies and they're like, well, I wanted all this other stuff. And I'm like, well, I still have other clients to do. You have to add that on now.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
it's very clear when they get that contract exactly what I'm going to do for them. But as RK outlined, everything else is an extra. I can build it any way you want. I can take it away. We can massage it. And I found that works best for me over the years.
Got it. Jim, how about you?
Really, I mean, I focus solely on operations. If somebody calls me for feasibility, I'm going to go to Andrew or Matt or anybody else. That's not something I get myself into. I strictly, being an operational guy for the last 20 plus years, I focus on my expertise in operations. I usually get the first, like RK said, first phone call for free, just kind of see if it's going to fit or not. I usually ask them to send me a management summary reports. I can get a kind of look at a property. And then I have rates. I have an hourly rate for the Zoom calls or stuff like that. And then I have an in-person rate for travel plus travel to get there. And I usually tell people that I just did one in Texas. I said, you're going to make this money up in 60 days. And he came back and said, I made it up in 43. So it's really straightforward. Look, we're all here to help each other, but we're all in the business to do the job as well. So our rates are pretty straight. It's an hourly thing. I don't have a menu or a rate card, whatever you want to call it. It's based on hours. And then I just had one guy paid me a retainer. We're going to start. He paid up front. We're going to work it off. It's all on how they want it. And realistically, like you said earlier, vet the ones. And I'm going to push you. If it's not something I'm going to be comfortable with, I'm not going to take that because I don't want to, I don't want to let somebody down. And my reputation is out there. So if you call me for feasibility study, I'm going to tell you straight up, I can't help you. But hey, here's Andrew, here's Matt, here's RK. Go talk to them, and I'll even do the introduction email.
Yeah, definitely. I love that you guys all kind of are structured similar, but have your own different niches and variances that you have. I'm going to ask this, and go ahead. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, sometimes we also use a collaborative approach. I don't do flex space. So if somebody has a mixed use project and they're going to do flex space with it, or they're going to add retail to it.
Yeah.
I have other consultants that I'll bring alongside me to do that piece of it, because I don't represent myself as being the end all in retail and what that's going to rent for, how long it's going to be vacant. All of those things is not my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But I have those resources, like I'm sure all the rest of the guys do, where they can bring somebody in, whether it's a hotel guy or a retail guy or whatever, and give them a turnkey project with all of that stuff together. And I think, that also shows your depth, that you got other reaches in the industry, even outside of self-storage.
Yeah, definitely. And we don't have an official marketing consulting program, but the SBOA can help with marketing consulting. We're a marketing agency essentially at this point. And then with our networking and our savings program through the Alliance, and membership is free, so everyone can take advantage of this. If you are a member of the SBOA, we're connected with lots of vendors in the space that have given our members certain discounts and pricing. So heavily rely on us. If there's products and services that you need out there, contact us. We can kind of point you in the right direction of a couple, even the ones we don't necessarily contract with and work with. I always tell people to go get at least like 3 bids on whatever it is that they're looking for to compare it. Are you comparing apples to apples, oranges to oranges? Everybody's going to go for that lower price first, probably when all three come in, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right solution, right? Jim, we've got 2 questions and then we're going to have to wrap up. I told you these things are going to start going for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, guys. An hour is just not enough because I bring some really good speakers together that have such good information to share that I don't want to cut the audience short. But Jim, I'll push this to you because you do this. How are you selling locks when the facility is run remotely?
Real simple. Every unit has a lock waiting for them in the unit. The lock has got a slice in the lock, so it's easy to open. We put a sticker on the lock with the unit number, and we tell the customer when they rent, hey, there's a lock waiting for a separate charge part of the rental process. If they don't want it for some reason, they're instructed to return it in our drop box. If we get it back, we'll credit it off and credit them going forward. We don't return money, but we go forward. But 97% lock sales, guys. I mean, if you're changing units, one thing, but most people, when they get to a unit, don't have a lock. And how many times have we done an audit where we find a unit with no lock on it? Oh, I forgot to bring one. I don't have one. So by having the locks before them, it's just been a great thing. And RK, you said earlier about running remotely. I can tell you, I have dedicated hub staffs that customer service is end all be all for us too. We give them as much dedicated service from our remote staff, and we have people on the ground. So just because we're not in the office, it might lack a little bit, but there's still phone calls and cameras and all these things. Actually, I was just demoing something yesterday with live video chat. It could be kind of cool. But having those locks there, you can sell them. And if you're selling them for $15 or $16 and you're paying $5 or $6 for them, that's a revenue dream.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Jim. I'm going to go roundhouse on or roundhouse. Maybe I'm doing karate today over here and I don't know. On this question from Tom, do these consultants focus on a specific region or are you guys nationwide? Andrew, I'll ask you first. How about you?
Nationwide, work anywhere across the world if there's an opportunity.
Okay.
So that's what it is.
Matt, how about you?
Yeah, nationwide as well. I will say that maybe on some management contracts, if it's very far west, because I'm East Coast based, I may send that to someone else. But in general, though, nationwide.
Yep. I don't know if RK's there. There he is. RK, how about you?
I tend to work nationwide. I did a lot of work in the UK and in Europe and in Central and South America, and I just don't do that much work down there anymore because it's disruptive to my domestic business. So I'll let that refer out and go to other folks. I prefer to stay in the contiguous 48 if I can.
Yeah, likewise. I don't know much about anything abroad, but I've heard it's very, very different than US-based operations. So that kind of makes me nervous to go learn that.
Hey, Jessica, I would mention one thing as we kind of close and wrap up. And, there's a lot of there's a lot of gurus and coaches and mentors that are out there. Not all of them necessarily have a lot of deep self-storage experience. A lot of them are approaching the business in a fairly unique manner. I'm an old traditionalist, so I believe, hard work is what gets the soil tilled and makes the fruit grow. And I'm not a nothing down guy where you use 100% of somebody else's money and they take all the risk. Mm-hmm. That's a very unique business model. And when you choose a consultant, you should make sure that you know where they're going with this, because if they're headed down that direction, that property may never be an institutionally owned property. And if your exit strategy is to get the highest dollar in the easiest method, you're going to want to make sure that you have a readable property. You have something that the institutions are ready, willing, and able to buy at a moment's notice. And so I think it's very, very important that they understand what that consultant can deliver and how much they've actually done of it. All the guys on this panel, we've all been around a long time. As you said, you took a poll on what our combined experience is. There you go, yes. Jessica.
Hold on. You reminded me. Thanks, RK. Noel Santos, he won. He was the closest. He said 120 years. It's actually 118 years combined. That's so much, guys.
Wow.
So, I think it's really important, though, that you understand what your consultant's expertise really is and where their mindset is, because it's going to make all the difference in the world. And especially on a really, really small project. I think we had somebody who said they were building 32 units or something on a 1 acre. That's a very different analysis than a 700 unit property in a major metropolitan market. Not that it's not feasible. It's not feasible to the REITs, but it could be feasible to the owner. And so you've got to make sure that your consultant really understands those differences, and they need to understand the financial part of it. And if they've been dealing on 100% OPM, other people's money, they may not know how to actually underwrite a real self-storage project, especially if they don't have any operational acumen and experience in operating. They're just not, they're going to miss the mark. And it's amazing to me that we have a number of folks in the industry who are touting themselves as self-storage experts, and they're saying, well, I've been in multifamily for 20 some years. Well, that's great, but I know I'm not going to go do a multifamily feasibility study tomorrow for sure, because there's a lot of things I just don't know.
Right.
So
Yeah,
match it
definitely.
up.
Yeah, and then where were we? I was asking questions. Oh, Jim, nationwide, specific region. What about you?
Again, nationwide. I'm working with a client right now in Washington State. I'm doing a lot of Zoom calls. So really anywhere they're going to go. I mean, again, if it's one that's more West Coast and they want on-site stuff, I might call Andrew and say, hey, Andrew, I got one for you in Phoenix. Says, I don't want to come out to the heat, but
Happy to help you.
Yeah, definitely. Totally get it. Well, unfortunately, y'all, we are out of time for today. Thank you guys so much for being here with us. Lots of good information. If you're part of our audience today and you need any specific help, Melvin's asking, can we get the contact information for the speakers? Yes, you can, and I'm going to tell you how. So all of our Self-Storage Unlocked videos and webinar series are recorded and they are put out on YouTube. So if you follow and like and subscribe to the SBOA YouTube channel, you can go back and rewatch this video, any of our past webinars that we've done. I think we have the last 3 or 4 years of content of webinars up. So you can even go back and kind of get some historical data to see kind of if you're new, what we were talking about 4 years ago versus what we're talking about now. So there's some great resources out there. So we always will post their information on that YouTube video. And then my team typically sends a follow-up thank you for attending these webinars, and we'll make sure that we get that listed in there for you. We'll be back in 2 weeks on October 26th. That topic for Self-Storage Unlocked is the pros and cons of high tech. Artificial intelligence is here. It's coming. It's not going anywhere. We want to make sure that you're leveraging the right technology and know about some of the future technology that's coming up. I'm on the FSSA board, so I will be at the FSSA Owners Summit next Monday and Tuesday in the hold on a second. I'm moving Jim out of here for a second. So the FSSA Owners Summit is next week in Delray Beach on Monday and Tuesday. You cannot register online currently anymore, but you can register in person. It's limited space available. So if you're interested, please go to FloridaSSA.org. The website will have the information there. And again, we're all over social media. Like, follow, comment, share our information. We want to get the word out. Thank you all for being here again. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Bye,
Thanks.
everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.
See you Monday, Jess.
See you Monday. Bye, Art.